We're starting a brand new sermon series. So if you've ever been here with us before, during the summer, we do kind of a fun little series that's just called At the Movies. And all we do is take different movies within our culture and try to apply them just as an illustration to the sermon for the day. It's definitely not the focus. Always remember that. The focus is on the scripture text that we heard for today. But we use this just as a little tool to help us be able to remember the message throughout the week, or maybe when we see one of these movies. Because remember, God is always trying to pull us into His world. Remember, all of this is His world. We don't place God into our world. It's us being able to rely and focus upon Him. And so let's do that together today. The sermon series that we have is going to be 9 weeks over the course of this summer. And so over the course of these 9 weeks, we're going to focus on a theme that's called classics and cartoons. Classics and cartoons. And so we're going to do 5 different classic movies. And then we're going to do 4 different cartoons or animated movies that are just being released in the theater right now. So if you want to look at our series online, you can see the different animated movies and go see those in the theater if you want before the movie. Each one is kind of about 2 weeks or so being released before we're going to talk about it in church. And then you can also look at the classic movies and see if you want to check those out before and after too, just to kind of get you a little mindset of where we're going. So we're going to start with a classic today, a classic movie. This one was actually a book before it was a movie. The book was written in 1962, and it was a book that was estimated to probably only sell, maybe they were hoping to get about 3,000 copies of this book sold, and actually now it's sold over 40 million copies, and it's been translated into 40 different languages as well. It's a book that, if you're anything like me, you probably read it in school, maybe around the age of 8th grade, 9th grade, something like that. And this book then was made into a movie just about a year and a half after it came out because it was so popular. So the movie we're going to look at today is, there it is, To Kill a Mockingbird. Most of you guys read this book or seen this movie? Yeah, quite a few of us. If not, I'll kind of catch you up today, and like I said, you can always go and see it. So the movie To Kill a Mockingbird, one of the main characters is Atticus Finch. So Atticus Finch is an attorney who is a widower. His wife has passed away, and he has 2 kids, Jim and Scout, that are also kind of his focus in life of being able to raise them. And through his life, he takes time to be able to face a lot of unique situations with them, situations that are very, very difficult. And the whole time, as a father, he is trying to prepare them to send them out into the world, into a place where they're going to continue to face many of the obstacles that they are seeing in their own life. And so that's the first comparison that we have of our movie today to the gospel lesson that was read for us. In our gospel lesson, Jesus is preparing God's children, his Father's children, his disciples, to be able to go out into the world. And he's very direct with them about what the world is going to look like and the situations that they're going to face. And this has a lot of effect on you and me today, too, because it's something that God doesn't want to prepare just his disciples for, but you and I as his disciples as well. So let's start with the beginning of that reading from the book of Mark, chapter 10. It says, "These 12 Jesus sent out with the following instructions." So the 12 disciples, if you want to read their names, it's just in the verses right before, verses 1 through 4. The directions are, "Do not go among the Gentiles or enter any town of the Samaritans. Go rather to the lost sheep of Israel." So kind of a unique calling that he has. Go to the lost sheep of Israel. Do not talk to the Gentiles or the Samaritans. And when you first read that, it may seem like Jesus is being a little selective there. But you'll see in this passage that the path he puts his disciples on is very specific, because through this path of going after the lost sheep of Israel, the Jewish people, everyone is ultimately able to hear the message of the Lord coming to this earth for them. Just unique. You'll see kind of like that imagery a couple times here in this reading. He talks about the lost sheep of Israel. Jesus a lot of times talks about that sheep and that shepherd imagery, and that word shepherd is actually where we get our word pastor from today, of somebody who is shepherding. And ultimately, that's why we call Jesus the good shepherd, right? That he is the one that is ultimately shepherding all of us together, his lost sheep. So Jesus continues, as you go, proclaim this message, the kingdom of heaven has come near. If that phrase sounds familiar to you, that's the phrase that John the Baptist uses when Jesus is first getting introduced to everyone and he is going to be baptized. John the Baptist talks about the kingdom of heaven coming near, and that's because that's exactly what has happened. When Jesus comes to this earth, the kingdom of heaven has come close unto us. And because this is the truth, Jesus says, well, go out with these directions. I want you to heal the sick. I want you to raise the dead, cleanse those who have leprosy, drive out demons. Freely you have received, freely you give. And I like that last part too. Even in our ESV text, it talks about payment there, right? These gifts that God has given to you, I want you to go out and freely share them with others. He doesn't want the disciples to go out and take any of these gifts of healing and be able to use them just for selfish manners and from their own benefit. He wants them to share that with others. And you and I should remember that too. What are the gifts that God has given to you? You might not be able to cast out demons or heal the sick, but I bet there's a lot of other gifts that you have that God has freely given to you. How can you freely use those gifts for others? Look at all these great gifts these guys have too. Imagine being in a town thousands of years ago and someone was able to come to your town and your daughter had died and somebody was able to raise your daughter from the dead. Or your spouse had leprosy, or maybe today we just said, what if your spouse had cancer and somebody could come into your life and heal that? How exciting would that be? And it's all free. There's nothing attached to it, no strings. This is just a gift that God is giving to people. How would that be received? You would think really well the concept of healing, but Jesus goes on in our text, if you heard today, to actually give his disciples a warning. He says, I'm sending you out like sheep amongst wolves, therefore be as shrewd as snakes and innocent as doves. There's that imagery again, right? Sheep amongst wolves, and we know who we are and who the disciples are. And then we think about those wolves that are out in the world to be able to come after us at times. Even if things are going well, even if what we have to offer seems to be such a great and wonderful gift, Jesus says, watch out. And I want you to be, he says, shrewd. I want you to be smart. I want you to be careful when you are in the world, when you are living in the world. But at the same time, I want you to be innocent as doves. If you read anything in the Old Testament, you'll probably come across segments talking about people making sacrifices to God with doves, because that was seen as a very innocent animal. And think about it, if you've ever seen a dove, they don't do much, right? They're very innocent, they're very simplistic, they don't look threatening, right? They're not trying to go after us in any way or after any animal in this world. They're very, very simple. And here's another comparison to our text for today. If we're going to look at this concept of being innocent as doves, there are two scenes in the movie To Kill a Mockingbird in which we see how the title actually comes about. And so I'm going to show you one of them today. It's a movie clip, it's just about a minute and a half long. But check this clip out real quick, and then we'll discuss how it relates to our text a little bit more.
We've been having squirrels and rabbits lately. My pa and I go hunting in our spare time.
You got a gun of your own?
Uh-huh.
How long you had a gun?
Oh, a year or so. Can I have the syrup, please?
Well, certainly, son. Cal, you bring in the syrup dish, please?
Yes, sir.
How old were you when you got your first gun, Atticus?
13 or 14. I remember when my daddy gave me that gun. He told me that I should never point at anything in the house, and that he'd rather I'd shoot at tin cans in the backyard. But he said that sooner or later he supposed the temptation to go after birds would be too much, and that I could shoot all of the blue jays I wanted, if I could hit them. But to remember, it It was a sin to kill a mockingbird.
Why?
Well, I reckon because mockingbirds don't do anything but make music for us to enjoy. Don't eat people's gardens. Don't nest in the corn cribs. They don't do one thing but just sing their hearts out for us.
So it talks about that concept of mockingbirds there. If you know anything about the book or the movie, the title was actually supposed to be Atticus. It was going to be named after that main character, but it was shifted to Kill a Mockingbird based off of this scene here, and again, one other scene in the movie where Atticus is explaining to his children that mockingbirds, they don't cause a ruckus, right? They're not in anybody's gardens messing things up. They're not in the cornfields destroying the crops. All they're doing is singing. They're out there praising something. And so he says it would be a sin to kill a mockingbird. When God tells us to be able to go out into the world and to be innocent as doves, he wants us to have something very similar in mind. That we're not to go after people in an aggressive manner. We're not to be able to shame people around us. We're not to be looked at as being people's enemies or adversary in any way. Because remember, just like I told you, that pot of clay, when people are able to view us as Christians, a lot of times that's their description or picture that they create of who Jesus is. We are reflecting his light, as we heard about a couple weeks ago, in everything that we do. And so when we go out into the world championed by God, we should remember that. How are we making sure that we're not disrupting in a negative way the things around us, but maybe joining with people around us to be able to show them the great gifts that God has given to them? Jesus continues, he says, "Be on your guard. You will be handed over to the local councils and flogged in the synagogue. On my account, you will be brought before governors and kings as witnesses to them and to the Gentiles." Notice there that the group of people that are hearing the gospel message has expanded, right? Remember, they're just going to the lost sheep of Israel, and look at that last piece there. It says, but now at this point, your message is going to expand, and it's going to go to the Gentiles and to governors and kings. Everybody's going to be able to hear this. But again, he says, be on your guard. In the movie To Kill a Mockingbird, Atticus is charged with the responsibility of defending a man named Tom. Tom is accused very incorrectly of a horrific crime. He's arrested for it. He's eventually imprisoned for it. And at one point when he is trying to get his freedom, he is actually killed in the midst of it. This element in the movie is a theme that really rolls throughout, this concept of injustice or hate in different ways. Racism is obviously there, and it's unique to be able to look at this book not so many years ago and to see themes that we will say probably still exist, obviously, in our world today, but they're themes that have existed in our world for many, many years. Jesus is talking to his disciples about many of these same things today, right? He says, you are going to be handed over to people, not for doing anything wrong. That's just what's going to happen when they hear the message that you are sharing. He says, you're going to get flogged, you're going to get beaten, and if we continue the story, most of us know that almost all the disciples are killed for the things that they say or the things that they believe. But even 1,000 years before this, 3,000 years before To Kill a Mockingbird was written, the wisest man who ever lived, Solomon, said these words. This came to my mind this week when he writes the book of Ecclesiastes. He's talking about, again, this is the culture 3,000 years ago. In the place of judgment, wickedness was there. In the place of justice, wickedness was there. That wickedness existed in his world, in our world, in all worlds because of sin being there. And he tells us the problem. I love that words, those 4 words there that I highlighted twice. He says it's because something was in place, in the place of something else. I was looking at some reviews online the other day. Maybe you look at reviews when you go to a restaurant or looking for a certain product or something like that. I saw these reviews for all different baking recipes, and there's some that really stood out to me. So see if they stand out to you today. I thought I'd share just a couple of these. Here's one of the first ones I saw. I don't like peaches, so I substituted carrots. Are you already with me on this? It wasn't very good. It needs sweetness. Just in case, if you don't know this, you can't just take something orange in a recipe and substitute it for something orange. That's not how things work. But I love this. Hey, they still gave it 3 stars, so it couldn't have been the worst recipe. I like peaches, so I substituted carrots. Here's another one. Very good icing. I just didn't realize that I couldn't substitute the heavy whipping cream for mayonnaise. And I was just devastated when I tried it. Maybe mention that next time, but other than that, it was delicious. Do you really have to mention that, by the way? And how many other things? By the way, don't put motor oil in there either. It's gonna taste bad. The recipe isn't gonna come out. But they had to substitute one thing for another. Last one, carrots have way too much sugar, so I replaced them with shredded kale. The cake turned out rather nasty, so 2 stars. Unsure what went wrong. I mean, what could have gone wrong? Also a little bit dry. I can tell you what went wrong. Do you have any friends like this? I have a couple friends that they'll put something together. There's parts left over, and they're like, I don't know why there are parts left over. Did you follow the directions? No. Or you ask somebody, hey, I was trying to get from point A to point B. Would you follow the directions I gave you? I got lost. No, I didn't follow directions. We have to follow directions, right? That's the problem. And I want to relate this to our text for today. It's super easy. If you look at these recipes and these reviews, what were people doing? Number one, they were not following the directions they were given. They were just not following. People had written a recipe for them, very simple recipes, by the way, and they were not following the directions that they were given. Sounds funny on recipes, but what about when it's the truth in our lives? Have you ever realized that God gave us like a very perfect set of directions to be able to follow? We call them the 10 Commandments. Can you imagine if it doesn't have to be the whole world, just a small group of people in our world really sought to follow those 10 Commandments? We can call that small group of people Christians. We can call that us here today. But we so often take the direction manual that God has given to us and we alter from it. We change it. We don't follow the directions that he has given to us. And when we do that, guess what? The final product doesn't receive the stars that it should. It's not the same. Number 2, the people were making bad substitutions, right? You can't substitute mayonnaise for heavy whipping cream. You can't substitute kale for carrots. It's not the same thing. And guess what? You can't substitute Jesus for other elements in your life thinking that that's going to be what happens. Every time we try to pull Jesus out of the equation, that he is just a substitute of some type, things don't go correctly. God is the main ingredient that we need to have and need to always be founded on in everything that we do. But often we have these pulls in our life to be able to do something that's not godly and to be able to pull him out of the equation and to be able to substitute him with something else. Don't make those substitutions for God. Jesus continues, but when they arrest you, do not worry about what to say or how to say it. At that time, you will be given what to say, and for it will not be you speaking, but the Spirit of your Father speaking through you. Take that in for just a minute. It won't be you speaking. The Spirit of your Father speaking through you. Remember those jars of clay. Or for our text today in our movie, a mockingbird. Mockingbirds, as we heard in our movie, super innocent, really beautiful birds. They have a very specific talent for what they get their name from. They're able to listen to and repeat over 200 different sounds from different birds. Imagine that, being able to, it's almost like speaking all different languages, right? They're able to absorb that and keep it, and then they're able to share that. Now, it's not their music or songs that they are creating. They just listen to it, and then they're able to share it with others. And that's the same for us in our message for today. When Jesus tells us to go out and share with people that the kingdom of heaven has come near in Jesus, that's all we have to do is share that. You don't need to remember 200 different messages or songs. You just need to be able to remember one, that God has come here and be able to sing his praise. And I know sometimes that can feel difficult to be able to do, but look at how Mark started the beginning of those couple verses. He says, don't worry about what to say or how to say it. Don't worry about it, because God's going to be able to provide you those words. All of you have a story to be able to share with people around you who don't know Jesus, people who are hurting just like we are, and people who need to know the good news. All we need to do is take the song that God has already given to us, and we sing that back. Because often, in the recipes that we create in our lives, we need to remember that we can put that main ingredient in again. We can put Jesus in place of the anxiety that you're facing in life. You can put Jesus in place of the addictions that you're facing in your life. You can put Jesus in place of pain or hurt or loneliness. And most importantly, we can put Jesus in place of our sin. That's why he comes to this earth, to be able to be in place of. So we have that wonderful gift to be able to celebrate. And remember, that's not just for us to be able to hold. That's for us to be able to share with people around us. That's the whole key of this text today. To be able to be crafty, to be able to be smart, to be able to be innocent as we share that message. So I'm going to start preparing you now. In the fall, I decided we're going to do a service. We're going to do it at both services, 8:30 and 10:30. I want to do a Bring Your Friend Sunday. And I want all of us already to start thinking about who the friend is that we're going to bring to that. It's not going to be something secret, like we're just bringing them here and we're going to try to spring something on them. I want you to tell them, we're having to bring my friend Sunday. You are my friend. I want you to come to church with me today. And when they get here, I'll take care of the rest, I promise. But we need to figure out how we can be proactive in using these messages that God gives to us, of how we can go out into the world. And so I know it's just the beginning of summer, but start thinking about that neighbor or a family member or a friend or a coworker that you can invite as your friend to be able to join us on that Sunday. Because as they know, this world isn't perfect. There's a lot of wolves out there looking to be able to go after a lot of different people, but we have the perfect answer in our rock and in our chief cornerstone, Jesus Christ. Let's pray. Dear Lord, we thank you for the gift that you have given to us in Christ, and Lord, for the wonderful just opportunity